Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by Gameday Tailgate Experience. Our friends at GTE are hosting a big tailgate party, all you can eat, with an open bar for 5 hours prior to the Steelers' hopeful revenge game against Jacksonville Jaguars down in Jacksonville, Florida on November 18th, so later this year. But make sure you reserve your spot by going to steelcityunderground.com/Jaguars tailgate for all of that information. Plus, we also have a 20% off promo code that we'll mention somewhere in the middle of this show should we not fall asleep beforehand. We being my partner in crime, the Mason Randolph to my Mason Rudolph, Brian E. Roach. What's going on?
What?
You know the inside joke with me and Zach Meckler and us guys that have been around training camp. There are so many people that have been calling Mason Randolph or Mason Rudolph. See, now I'm even screwing up, and I'm not even trying to on purpose. They've been calling Mason Rudolph Mason Randolph. And after watching, now I don't know if you got the Steelers feed tonight, Brian.
I did not.
You got the away feed once again. Between Bob Pompiani and Charlie Batch, they have no clue who these guys are out there. And I'm not talking about some of the offensive linemen or the bodies that were thrown out there that I had to endure in the fourth quarter that I was identifying off the roster. But I'm like talking about, you know, Jalen Samuels. At one point, Bob Pompiani actually said that Brett Favre wanted to play in this game. Usually you wait until the third game, but he wanted to get some extra reps. And I'm like, I don't know that Brett Favre's had reps in about 6 or 7 seasons, man. I mean, he mistook Aaron Rodgers for Brett Favre. I don't even know how many other players. I mean, it was just a constant thing over the night. I mean, I know sometimes we butcher and make fun of the pronunciation key and whatnot, but it's almost as if, you know, these guys haven't been paying attention during training camp or something, or their spot in the press box is so bad they need some binoculars to identify numbers. Or Rosie Nix returned, I think, the first kickoff, and he said it was Fitzgerald Toussaint. I mean, and just getting names wrong. And I'm sure Terry will have that as part of a WTF if she got to see the Steelers feed. But, the Mason Randolph thing was an inside joke. But what's not funny here is this was the game that just would not end. It went on forever. We may be loopier than ever. 51-34. This is preseason football. 85 points. Okay. Not a good thing. I don't know. Well, the game doesn't count. So number one is I don't know that I care. But there was some good. There was some ugly. Usually there's a lot of ugly. Was this really anything other than what you expected? Because I kind of figured, you know what, this is going to be a wash one way or the other, probably.
Considering, who was playing, who was behind center, who was playing on defense. No, this isn't really anything. Okay, I'm going to be honest. From the offensive side of the ball, even the pick sixes, even the poor play at quarterback in the first half by Mason Rudolph, that is all well within the range of things I expected.
Absolutely. 100% stamp, seal of approval. I second. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, aye. 51 points, a defense that continued to look like they weren't all on the same page, that they continued to take bad angles, they continued to missed tackles to the extent that I'm not sure IBM supercomputer could have kept track of how many missed tackles they had. That I did not expect.
Watson.
Yes.
Like the Watson that was on the team last year, it too was a nightmare at times. You know what?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There was, I'm starting to get to a point where I'm roasting Andrew Filipponi, that's one of the hosts on 93.7 The Fan, because one of the local beat writers got him pretty good. And you actually tweeted this before the beat writer did, just a reminder of all the guys that weren't in the game tonight. So let me think about this. Let's see. Let's go with the offense first. Antonio Brown, no.
Yep.
Ben Roethlisberger, no.
No.
Marquise Pouncey, no.
No.
Ramon Foster, no.
No.
DeCastro was in there. Villanueva was in there. Let's see. We had Filer in for Foster's spot. Finney in for Pouncey. So Pouncey, no. Gilbert, Gilbert, I believe, was in there. You know what? Why don't I look? That might be a better idea at this point. But I think you get the point on that. Le'Veon Bell, no.
No.
This is the starters offense. Justin Hunter. Now, hopefully this is correct this week, because last week I'm going by the official game book that the referees, the league submits. And so we have this is official from the NFL. So we're not pulling this out of a hat. But they listed T.J. Watt last week, which did not occur. He did not play. So hopefully this isn't wrong. Mason Rudolph. It's just too funny. James Conner. That looked like a pretty bright future. We'll get back to that. Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Hunter, DHB. Villanueva, Finney, DeCastro, Gilbert. They have Pharaoh McKeever on here as that's wrong. As a starting tight end with Jesse James, maybe. I don't know. They have him on here, but I don't know. I saw him a little later in the game. I thought during a period of time that we saw Bucky Hodges out there, but Marcus Gilbert. So that's the offense. Defense: Dan McCullers, Tyson Alualu, Stephon Tuitt, Bud Dupree, John Bostic, Anthony Chickalo, Vince Williams, Cody Sensabaugh, Morgan Burnett, Terrell Edmonds at strong safety, and Artie Burns. So you know who's missing from this equation. Cam Hayward. Oh, yeah. Cam Hayward, defensive captain, sack leader 2017. TJ
Grown-ass man.
Also grown-ass man. TJ Watt, only in his second year. A lot of potential, a lot of hope there. Sean Davis, who is he hasn't missed snaps since he's been drafted. This guy is like an Iron Man on the defense. I'm trying to think who else. Joe Hayden. You think he might make a little bit of a difference out there too? So, and I'm still missing somebody else. I think there were 5 guys that were starters that were not out there. No. Well, I mean, Hargrave, I guess. Hargrave played at some other point. They have McCullers in here, which I don't know. McCullers was out there.
Yeah, he was.
So I guess the point is there's a mix of guys who are established players with the team, and then there are a mix of guys who aren't necessarily fixtures, and maybe not even so much as role players, don't play a whole lot of snaps even during the regular season, that were in this game. So I thought it was interesting to see, at least if you start on the offensive side of the ball, that Mason Rudolph got the nod. Were you as surprised as I was with that? Because I thought maybe, oh man, if he gets that, he's going to have a lot more support than Josh Dobbs does, and this could be bad news for Josh Dobbs. Turns out it wasn't necessarily pretty in the early going for both of them, but Rudolph kind of struggled in this game. He might want to hide somewhere and be Randolph, but then again, hey, he had to be nervous. He's new. He's still a baby.
He's still young. He's still learning the position. But 5 of 12, 41.7 completion percentage, a quarterback rating of, I believe, 46.2. Hey, look, his first pass went for 6 points. Unfortunately, it was just 6 points for the other team. I'm not stunned that they gave him the nod, all right? Because they need to see what they have in Mason Rudolph, right? They need to understand if he has a future, if he doesn't have a future, or what kind of future they actually anticipate to have. So they're going to push him in these preseason games. That's why Landry Jones isn't playing in this game, is because they know who Landry is. They know what he is. They need to find out between Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs where they headed, or what are they going to do with these two guys. And so it didn't totally surprise me that they put Mason, as the starter.
No.
I don't think it turned out great. Let's just put it that way.
No, I'm not necessarily surprised because I think they feel he's the future. I don't think he's in any jeopardy of no longer being a Pittsburgh Steeler. They said they had a first-round rating on him. What's that tell you? And you got him under contract. Now, I was disappointed that he threw the pick, and he stared it down like a mile away. I mean, it was his first pass. It's just 5 of 12. This is what we talked about with the whole quarterback thing the other day, going through everything. And we're going to get the people that are going to come out and defend it, and I get you. I'm in this. Me and Brian definitely agree with this following statement. It's not only one game, it's a preseason game. But by the same token, some people say, well, you should be able to beat up on the JV team, blah, blah, blah. And, they're ready to, blow up the whole team. And, it's what? The apocalypse is coming. Relax. Take a deep breather. These are the reps he needs. He needs to make some of these mistakes, get his feet wet. And unfortunately, or fortunately, or you may have even heard me exclaim, nah, I don't take joy in people not performing up to their level, I should say. But I do take a little bit of joy in at least needling the fans that have been on my case about Landry Jones in seeing that, you know what, the other guys throw interceptions too in the preseason as well, playing against, camp bodies or whatever you want to call them that are probably on the bottom half of the roster that won't be there in a couple of weeks. So, having said that, Rudolph got, I don't know that he ever got settled, ever got comfortable, and he looked better last week, I want to say. They put him in with the big boys, or at least some of the big boys, and it was a little bit more pressure. Now, you want to know who bailed him out to start all of this, and he came back, and they got this game tied at 14-all. James Conner, with 3 runs in a row, just took it straight down the field and hammered it. And I think that's very promising for Steelers Nation. They're probably already going to say, trade Bell. Well, you can't. He's not under contract. Please stop asking for Khalil Mack as well.
Yeah. I'm going to steal some stats from our boy Zach Meckler. Here Connor's through 2 games, 9 rushes, 82 yards, 9.1 yards per carry, and a TD. James Conner looks much different than the back we saw last season. He's much more confident. He showed vision. He showed patience. He showed elusiveness in this game, and that was early in the game. We're talking, the Green Bay had a lot of starters in on defense at various points early on, and Conner looked good running behind a line that was only partially starters for the Steelers. So that's definitely a positive to take out of this game, is the way James Conner appears to be ready to truly contribute.
Fitzgerald Toussaint looks like a guy who has this already figured out. Probably the odd man out. I was excited to see Jalen Samuels toward the end of the game. I wish he could have caught that ball. Yeah, it could have been a better pass. The Steelers broadcast, at least, Charlie Batch and them pointed that out. So, but Josh Dobbs, I thought, was very composed, even though, right out the gate, man, I mean, you just sunk it. And you got to think, put yourself in his shoes. You're thinking, I'm competing with Mason Rudolph. I'm competing for a spot. I got to do everything perfect. The other guy has not had that great of a game. I need to go out here and hit one out of the park. And he throws a pick on maybe his second attempt, or
that would be the first attempt.
Was it the first attempt, but maybe the second play?
Yes,
second play,
first pass attempt.
Yeah, I mean, and a pick 6, both of them. This is like the Jaguars all over again with Ben Roethlisberger, except 2 quarterbacks and splitting them in half. But 12 of 18, 2 touchdowns, 192 yards, 116 rating. Not too bad. Now, I believe that was intended for, if I could find it here, I think it was Damone Patterson. And I got to wonder if anything happened with Damone running that route that may have contributed to I don't know what happened there, but I also thought he kind of stared him down too. And there was a few other times throughout the game where I'm just like, oh my goodness, I could tell exactly where he's going. And the other players maybe not as veteran to jump a route or anything like that. So I don't know. Let me see. It was for Patterson, by the way. So I'm wondering if Patterson had anything to contribute to that, because a lot of times whenever I've defended, let's say, Landry Jones or Ben or anybody like that, sometimes you also got to take into consideration, did the other guy do the job he was supposed to? And in the case of Rudolph, his pass that began the game, that one is for Darius Hayward-Bay. And Darius Hayward-Bay kind of just like stood there and didn't go fight for the ball, which we're going to talk about another young receiver here in a second who that's all he did tonight.
Yes.
So
look, this is the thing about Dobbs. Clearly there's a competition between Dobbs and Mason Rudolph, but perhaps that competition has garnered some level of friendship and empathy. And maybe Dobbs said, look, I know you got to feel bad about that first throw. Let me just do it so I can prove to you that it's not just you, man.
Whatever. You know what else I wanted to talk about for the evening before? Let's just jump into it. The refs suck.
Yeah.
12 penalties against the Steelers for 116, another 7 for 80 on the Packers, 19 penalties in the game. I mean, I'm going to have to deal with 20 penalties in a game again. And then there was like some like bizarre stop after a timeout, and these guys couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. And I'm just like, get this game going, please, for the love of God. Like, you don't even need a play. Just get rid of the play clock, replace it with a shot clock, please.
Yeah, I tweeted out at one point in the game, it's good to know that the refs still don't know what a holding call is. And when to throw a flag, because there was a clear holding on a couple plays there. It is always encouraging to know that the level of competency in our refereeing corps remains constant, and that constant level being suckage.
Consistent in a bad way. Can you believe this, though? Even in a 51-34 game, the Packers had 357 total net yards to Steelers 370. Steelers outgained them. Packers only had 4 more offensive plays. I mean, it's all tied up in those 2 pick sixes, basically. The time of possession, Packers had it longer, like 5 minutes longer, and some change. So, third down, Steelers were miserable, 3 of 11. Packers were 6 of 14, 43%, almost 50%. Steelers perfect in the red zone, 3 of 3. Packers 3 of 4. There was the one stop you had to be happy about. And I'm trying to think, I'm looking here for anything else of significance. There were a few sacks. We'll get to that. The punt game was abysmal on both sides of the field, which is not promising for our friend Jordan Berry at this point. He's got to clean that up. So
just as a note, Tomlin called that out in his press conference.
Yes, he did. So before we actually continue and maybe jump to James Washington and the defensive side of the ball, I wanted to tell everyone about that 20% off code for the Gameday Tailgate experience, Steelers and Jaguars tailgate party down in Jacksonville on November 18th. That code is Steel City. I know you hear it here all the time, but in case you forgot, you need to write that down. Steel City, all one word. The links to purchase all that stuff, once again, steelcityunderground.com/Jaguars tailgate. That begins at 3:30 in the afternoon, so long as they don't flex that game. It is a Sunday night game so far, but the way it sounds right now, it sounds like the Steelers are going to be awful. They should be relegated. They don't even do that in American football. There's no relegation. They don't have like a second division or something like they do in soccer overseas. Like if a team's bad in soccer, Brian, they could relegate. Like the Cleveland Browns would not be in the NFL right now. They'd be in like an Arena League or something. And then you could promote teams too. So a team that would have been good in like the Canadian League, Hamilton Tiger Cats or something, whatever team that Manziel was playing for. He actually went from Hamilton to like Montreal or something crazy within a week, and He threw 4 picks as well, but I'm not going to defend that guy because he's not a Steeler. So anyway, James Washington, why don't you go ahead and say it? You reserve the word for Cam Hayward, but at least tonight, James Washington is we're going to give an award, I think, weekly for grown-ass man.
Grown-ass mini-man.
Yeah, well, not too many. I mean, what? Six even?
He's a big guy. He's a big, strong receiver.
Big hands.
I only give him the mini man because he's a rookie.
Big hands.
You got to. And look, he had a great game. He high pointed the ball. He did what he's been doing. But in this particular game, he did it against really the JV. This is a perfect example of a guy who should be a varsity player, really abusing the JV DBs, because he did to the tune of 100+ yards and a couple TDs.
114, 2 touchdowns. He had 5 catches, but just like Juju a week before, and unlike DHB when Rudolph was looking at him and said, "I'm going to throw you the ball," 5 seconds before he did it, these guys went after the football. They actually went up and got it and took it and said, "No, mine." And I even made a joke that Green Bay is used to this because it looked like it wasn't really a simultaneous catch. It was caught, and then the DB tried to rip it out. But if you remember the whole replacement referee fiasco, as if they could get any worse, the replacement. Well, here the story, if you don't know, with the whole Seattle Green Bay deal there, I believe the guy had no more experience than Division III collegiate football, because a lot of the guys that work the upper levels of college football, the assigners in those big conferences like the Big Ten or ACC and SEC, those are guys who actually worked in the NFL, and they would basically be not only blackballed from Division I paydays, which is a substantial amount of money, but any chance if they ever wanted to work in the professional league. So just to give you a little insight on that. But anyways, either way, it didn't work out in Green Bay's favor then, didn't work out in Green Bay's favor tonight. And I don't know, a couple other guys on the wide receiver thing. Damone Patterson caught 3 of his 5 targets, 35 yards. The big chunk of change was the 29-yarder. You know what? He was fine tonight. I think he was all right. Trey Griffey is trying to make a name for himself. He got some solid playing time. Jesse James looked fast. Justin Hunter caught a pass. I don't even remember that. Jalen Samuels caught a few. I'm happy to see that. Farrow got the tight end. McKeever, 1 for 10. Juju, of course, the touchdown and the celebration. Oh, we can't expect anything less. A Lambeau leap from Juju.
Yep.
That's awesome. DHB caught Zippo. Marcus Tucker. Here's a guy I was talking about heading into training camp, and I have not talked about since that. If any of you picked up the Steelers preview book that myself and Christina Rivers wrote, I wrote ad nauseum about Marcus Tucker being a camp sleeper. He hasn't shown up. The alarm has not gone off. This isn't one of these, hey, we know what he's got or who he is or anything like that. He's going to be SOL pretty much. And then Tevin Jones, he got in late and didn't do a whole lot either. So I'm not sure anything else on the offense has stood out to you today.
No, that is about it. Look, as I tweeted this out, being an Ohioan, watching Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. come back home to Cincinnati, it warms my heart to see Trey Griffey get some playing time. It warms my heart to see him get some catches. He's not going to make this team. There's just no way. Maybe he can get a spot on the practice squad, but I think that's probably a stretch even then. But it is nice to see him getting out there, getting some time, and getting some catches, and at least getting a resume built for himself. Really, to me, the highlights of everything tonight were James Conner and James Washington. So it's the double J's, 2 Jameses. And beyond that, the rest of the work that came in, I mean, Jalen Samuels had some moments, but again, we're talking about guys he's playing against might not be on the practice squad at this point. I actually, I expect him to excel in those situations. The offensive line was very up and down. It was nice to see Okorafor get out there and get some snaps and acquit himself for the most part okay. Ola on the defensive side, he was disruptive again. That was good to see. But yeah, beyond that, on the offensive side anyway, there's little to really take away. It wasn't the offense that was the problem really, though, in this game, other than the 2 pick sixes.
Yeah, agreed. Just to mention with the offensive line, there seems to be this seed that was planted about panic. Look, folks, if your 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th string offensive linemen were NFL starters or quality enough to be an NFL starter, they would be. That's why Chris Hubbard went and signed the big deal in Cleveland, okay? So enough with the panic. Enough with the panic, because some of these guys did not play, and then we're going to get Ramon Foster back from the injury. Gerald Hawkins is going to return, presumably before the start of the season, or that was like the timetable, I believe, for him as well. So just one other fun fact, and you were talking about Ken Griffey Sr., Ken Griffey Jr. As a kid, I mean, grew up, Ken Griffey Jr. was the man, and he was the poster boy for Nintendo because Nintendo was a part owner of the Seattle Mariners, for whom he played for. So I mean, he had his own video game. If you had a Super Nintendo back in the day, he had more than one actually. Yep. Now I tried to make a funny, but I had realized an error in my ways, and this was in our private talks during the game, and I said that'd be awesome if he had Griffey 3 on the back of his jersey. It'd be so much more awesome if he was Ken Griffey III. Well, he actually is Ken Griffey III. He is George Kenneth Griffey III. That's why he is nicknamed Trey for the third, but he does not have the numbers, the Roman numeral deal going on his jersey like practically everyone else in the NFL. Usually these guys have a kid now, and that's the new thing. They put senior on the back, which is kind of cool in a way. And another way I roll my eyes, it depends, you know what I mean? But it's kind of cool. It's like, hey, I have a kid now, like, I named him my name, so I put senior on. It was more important to me, like when these guys, when the 2 Griffies were actually playing baseball and they were both in the league, then you had to differentiate which was which, you know what I mean? And senior, I think it was always like assumed that if you didn't have senior at the end of your name, then you were the senior, and the other guy that had junior is your son. So, but yeah, Trey for the number 3. I thought that was pretty cool. A little fun fact for Steelers Nation out there. Now, the defense. The good thing was, for me, I thought Vince Williams played out of his mind tonight. There was good and bad from the first-round pick, Terrell Edmonds. Morgan Burnett, also good and bad. There was a mixed bag of a lot of things going on. Now, one thing I want to throw out here is you're going to see Deshaun Kaiser with 7 of 12, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, 142 rating. Brett Hundley, 6 of 9, 77, 93 rating. Rodgers only threw 4 passes. He had a touchdown, 119 rating. Guess what all of these guys have in common? They have started games in the NFL, and at that, multiple games. Deshaun Kaiser started 15 games in the National Football League last year. I don't care if it was for the Cleveland Browns or not. That is still valuable experience. That may be more. That's probably still more starts than what Landry Jones has.
Yes.
So there's some value to that, obviously. And then I'm trying to get Hundley's numbers up here. Hundley started 9 games when Rodgers was hurt, which also may be more games than Landry Jones, or in the whereabouts of the same ballpark. At least he appeared in 11 games total. And he threw a lot of picks last season, 9 touchdowns and 12 picks or whatever. But still, he had 316 regular season attempts against the big boys. Now when you come in there and it's not the big boys, you didn't even start with the big boys, and now you're out to 3, 4, and 5 deep. I expect these quarterbacks to actually do a reasonable job, okay? So when somebody says, oh, well, the corners, they suck. Well, the Steelers have Joe Hayden, Artie Burns, Mike Hilton. Didn't even see Hayden. I don't even remember if Hilton was there because, you know what, it's been quiet. That's how much he's been. I called him the glove on one of the previous episodes. Artie Burns was out there for a quick minute for a cup of coffee. And then there was, who else is there? There's Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton got quite a bit of playing time this evening. And then it was everybody else. It was Deshaun Phillips. It was Jamar Summers. It was Brian Allen. It was Cody Sensabaugh. This is like 5 dogs, 1 bone. I don't know. You can't expect the world from most of these players. Now, Sensabaugh, maybe because he's a veteran, but Brian Allen's a second-year player who didn't have any regular season snaps. Summers is a guy they brought in. Phillips has been a guy bouncing around practice squads. He has minimal NFL starting experience. Cam Sutton only played half a season last year. He's a second-year player. So do you see where I'm getting at? Does that make sense? Maybe you could clear this up a little more than me.
No, all of that makes sense. This is, even though you're playing guys who are in backup roles there, they have enough experience and quite frankly, probably more experience playing than a lot of the guys that are playing on defense right now for the Steelers. You mentioned Terrell Edmunds. He looked very good a couple times. He looked less good as well a couple times. But that he's a work in progress. He's going to make his mistakes. He's going to take his lumps. It's kind of ludicrous to assume, because I got into some I won't call them Twitter arguments or even Twitter wars, but some Twitter conversations with people about the fact that, look, as we said, Cam Hayward's not playing. Mike Hilton didn't play, I don't believe, at all. T.J. Watt, Sean Davis, you mentioned, Joe Hayden. This is a different defense than the defense that we have come to expect. And people were reciting, last year Blake Bortles lit them up. Well, Blake Bortles didn't light them up. Blake Bortles was barely mediocre in the two games. It doesn't help when they give up
passes,
14 points. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Blake Bortles lit no one up. Yes, the defense wasn't great, and they gave up issues, and they still have a glaring problem with tight ends. At least at this point right now, Terrell Edmunds does not appear to be the answer to covering tight ends. But again, we've got time for growth there. This is his second NFL game. He's got a lot of learning still to do, and it will help when you've got generals on the field that aren't there right now.
Well, let me rewind that just a little bit, reel that in with Edmunds. He was exclusively playing strong safety, and Sean Davis was not out there. I don't think that's going to be the expectation in the regular season. It's going to be, although he's been playing in that spot, it's going to be more. Morgan Burnett plays everywhere, and I think Sean Davis has made the transition to free safety. So I do believe you're going to have Edmunds or Burnett, probably Edmunds, the way we saw it. And it kind of sucks to say all this stuff because of the way they've been banged up. They being Davis and Burnett. Edmunds has been seeing a lot of time with the first team in those other spots, but it wasn't like he was exclusively in that nickel, dime, quarter, dollar, whatever pocket change defense that we've been talking about with the buzzwords, where he is going to just maybe man up and stay clung to a Jimmy Graham or someone like that. So that's what I wanted to throw out there. So it's a little bit different of a beast here because it's a different type of coverage.
Yeah, I would say overall my biggest concern is this. John Bostic has underwhelmed me in 2 games. And I can kind of give it up in Philadelphia because it's his first game in. You expect there to be some adjustment. But he, again, did not look great tonight. He took bad angles. So did Morgan Burnett a couple times.
Yes,
they weren't disciplined. The inside linebackers as a whole, other than Vince Williams, who I agree with you, I think Vince Williams had a nice, solid game and looked like he was rounding into regular season form. But other than Vince Williams, I was very concerned with the play of the inside linebackers. Now, that being said, again, it's still a work in progress, and the inside linebackers will be able to play much differently. John Bostic will be in a much better position if Cam Hayward is taking up 2 offensive linemen and nobody is shedding off of that to get to the second level and take John Bostic out of plays. He'll be able to roam better. It's much different when your starting defensive line is Cam Hayward, Stephen Tuitt, and probably just Javon Hargraves. Even though Hargraves has gotten himself a little bit in the doghouse of late, I still think that's your starting unit, and that's a different beast in front of those inside linebackers than what they have thrown out there right now. So I'm not ready to write these guys off, Bostic specifically, as a mistake or a bust in other things. But, I am not encouraged at the same time. So I'm hoping that when we see them again in how many ever days it is, 10 days or whatever before the next preseason game, that the next time around that we see some improvement with probably more of the starters getting a couple series. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is Bud Dupree. Little did we know, he is the greatest pass rusher in the NFL and an all-pro to boot. Little did we know this.
I saw that, and that I even got a chuckle out of that. I love backing up Bud. Yeah, that's another thing with the JV team thing. They got 3 sacks tonight. That was kind of nice. I'm going to give a little bit of thumbs up, thumbs down here. I thought McCullers a little bit more above the line than usual from what I saw. Maybe the new coach has gotten that fire lit under his butt. Alu looked good, I thought. I didn't get to pick out Stephon Tuitt from the crowd. Dupree, they, of course, had him listed here. I love when they list, Vince Williams as a right outside linebacker and Dupree as a left outside linebacker. I guess it's where they kind of line up in these stunts before, pre-snap to call them the starters. I would think that somebody would actually submit a sheet and say these are the guys that start, but I guess it all depends on the formations and what the other team's showing, especially on defense. But Vince Williams is outside linebacker. Okay. Anthony Chickalo, nothing's really stood out to me yet. Bostic, whenever I saw 51, I was starting to get nightmares of Sean Spence and had to remember he's no longer on the team with the same number. Sensabaugh, I think the guy's been getting a raw deal here and there during the preseason. I don't know about you as far as the officials and the flags and these, this new helmet call crap. Brian Allen also got the short end of it, I think, in the end zone as well. I thought Brian Allen had a solid game. Burnett, I'm going to say below the line because, like you said, bad angles, missed tackle. It's geez, we've already seen this before, and Mike Mitchell's no longer on the team, so hopefully that improves through this preseason. Edmonds, a push. I'm going to put him right in the middle. He's a rookie. Artie Burns, for what little we saw above the line. I'm going to go through the substitutions, too. We don't have to talk about some of these guys again, but Barry, below the line. Boswell is the wizard. Quadri Henderson didn't show us anything. We talked about James Washington. We talked about most of the receivers. Let me jump over to, Cam Sutton. In the middle, I'm going to say. He wasn't maybe just a little above the line, maybe.
He made some nice plays. Cam Sutton made some nice plays tonight. But, again, when he did, it was generally speaking against, the second tier of receivers.
He's growing. He's had flashes. The missile, Nat Burhay, below the line, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Toussaint, well above the line. Deshaun Phillips, I'm going to put him in the middle. He looks like he gets beat here or there, and then he comes up with a play. Jordan Dangerfield, above the line. Make his name known on special teams there at least once. I mean, he's probably on the way out, unfortunately. He hasn't seen a whole lot of playing time. Jalen Samuels above the line. Let me see. I can't really comment on some of these guys like Matt Galambos or Farrington Hujanin and Matakevich below the line. Not a good game. Matt Thomas above the line, especially dropping into coverage on that one play near the end of the game. That was pretty sweet. Christian Scotland Williamson did not stand out to me. LJ Fort
had a nice rush.
Yeah, I don't know where to put him. He had a really great play, and then there was one he missed, and that's going to happen. So above the line, I'm going to give him there. Let's see. I can't really say something about a lot of these offensive linemen. There were some penalties and whatnot. I'm going through. It's practically all linemen now. We talked about all these guys. I didn't notice Bucky Hodges really do a whole lot. Damone Patterson, so about in the middle. Patterson. It's tough because if it wasn't for the play with the interception, then I would say nothing stood out. But I really don't know what his assignment is there, and that could get him in the doghouse. Ola, Mr. Number 92, I'm going to say above the line again. I think he's still getting pressure, and he's got a motor that doesn't stop. And then there's like Levon Hooks, LT Walton stood out for a play or two above the line, and Keon Adams pretty much kind of non-existent there as well. So the players that didn't play, of course, Landry Jones, Big Ben, Sean Davis, Joe Hayden, Le'Veon Bell, Mike Hilton. So Mike Hilton didn't play at all. Running back, the other Summers that wears 39, Pouncey, AB, Cam Hayward, and then the non-actives completely were Stephen Ridley, surprisingly, Marcus Allen, the rookie safety, Ramon Foster, who's hurt, Xavier Grimble, he did something with his finger, Vance McDonald, and TJ Watt still kind of banged up and coming back from injuries. So that's your full report on everyone that participated in this game. I don't know if you got a few other comments, Brian. I don't really want to harp too much on the defensive side because it did end up being some backups and mixed match this and that. I was, like I said, a little disappointed at times with the safeties and also the linebacker play, but it is what it is. I mean, it's a preseason game and you're playing against 3 quarterbacks who all have starting experience in the NFL.
Yeah, look, you mentioned Cody Sensabaugh. I just want to say, in the 2 games, I mean, the pick was nice in the first game, but overall, consistency is an issue with him.
Yes.
And what he gives up when he's off versus what he gets you when he's on may be in balance. And I think he is making a conversation to not be in that group. As opposed to making a conversation as to why he should be in that group. That's really the only other thing I wanted to step on with the defense. I will say this, and I said it at the end of the game. I think the biggest takeaway from this game is the fact that the Steelers really have a conversation that they need to have now about whether or not they keep all 4 quarterbacks and how they go about doing that. Because Josh Dobbs, take away the 1 pick 6, has consistently looked better than he did last year. He looks more comfortable than he did last year. And it is within the realm of possibility at this point to say what is more effective for the Steelers to have: an offensive lineman who doesn't suit up or an extra quarterback who doesn't suit up. What is the right thing for them to do? And that's a credit to Josh Dobbs. He's made a statement in the first 2 games of saying, you can't just toss me out. I still think he's got an uphill battle, but unlike Sensabaugh, who's making the conversation in the wrong way, I think Josh Dobbs is making his point that he needs to be in that conversation.
It's the interesting thing. I think the wild cards here are the position groups. Like last season, 6 wide receivers. Do you even need 5? It depends who you got returning kicks and punts. It could be Henderson, who I don't see making the team. Could be Eli Rogers if he is healthy. They like Darius Hayward-Bay, as like the special teams type of guy. But, I mean, you got the top 3 guys are AB. This is going to be a much longer conversation, but just to kind of condense it, the top 3 guys are. You're talking about DHB, you're talking about Hunter Damone Patterson. You could probably put him on the practice squad. He could make the 53, but is another team going to sneak up and just take a chance on a guy that's a small college guy? I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know that anybody's maybe that desperate or that wide receiver poor. I could be wrong. Safety, they're pretty deep there, but corner, Cody Sensabaugh, we're essentially talking about the 5th corner, maybe. You think Brian Allen has more upside? I do.
Yep.
He could be the 5th. They don't necessarily need to keep 6th. We've seen them keep maybe 11 defensive backs. We've seen them. They've usually carried 5 outside linebackers. I don't think they have 5 outside linebackers to carry this year. Ola is a practice squad guy. They're going to have 4, and that's including Keon Adams. If Keon Adams is that 4th guy, it's Chick and then Watt and Dupree. Who else do you got? Same with inside linebacker. You're probably going to have 8 linebackers, maybe 9 linebackers. I don't know that you have 10 linebackers. This begins the conversation of these are some spots opening up where you got some wiggle room for Josh Dobbs to be on the 53, and they keep 4 quarterbacks. And yes, he's looked like a leader. He has sustained drives, and consistently in both of these games, his accuracy does not look bad at all. He's been able to throw the ball downfield. He's been able to extend drives with his legs. And we know he's an intelligent guy. I mean, this is not somebody I necessarily want to throw the towel in on because, you know, like we've said, you don't want to be on the wrong side of getting it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I think, like you said, that's just where it is, and which is a good thing. It's a good problem for him to have, but it is a problem nonetheless. You know, I think a lot of guys tonight made a case for not being there. But be that as it may, you know, they're going to get their shots. You know, the next preseason game will be much more interesting to watch, in my view, because the starters should all get some reps. And by the time we get to that 4th game where it'll be sort of a replay, maybe even less so of this game, you know, we'll have to see how it all shakes out. We gotta stress for everybody one more time. You know, it wasn't that long ago that the Lions and the Browns went 4-0 in the preseason and looked like world beaters, only to come up 0-16 during the regular season. These teams, they're not scouting, they're not doing game planning. The whole point of preseason games is to check one-on-one matchups. It's to see how guys perform in certain situations, and they're much less concerned with the final score because it doesn't count.
No, exactly. And I don't even know how those teams, when they were that bad in the regular season, could even be that good in the regular season. Maybe they were on the wrong side of getting it wrong. Anyway, don't forget about the GTE tailgate in Jacksonville. Check that out on the website. Don't forget about Helmet Worthy. Still got the preseason guide, although that's getting long in the tooth because you're actually seeing these preseason games. And I think that's all we've got for now for today's show. So thanks, Brian. Once again, we're running out of steam.
Yeah, it's time for bed, man.
Yeah, it always is. So till next time, folks. Keep that in mind. Don't you fall asleep, especially if you're listening to this while driving. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. Be safe. Be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.